Right, let's continue with more stories. There's growing pressure to phase out fossil oil in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This comes as global temperatures hit record levels this year. Well, this and more have been taking the center stage of COP28 Climate Summit in Dubai.
Latest data shows global average temperatures were highest on record from January to November 2023. That's some 1.46 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial average. Experts say it would require some drastic measures in order to reduce temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold set out in the Paris Agreement. At the COP28 Climate Summit, there is a heated debate as to whether to completely phase out fossil fuel, said to be a major contributing factor to climate change. While pressure continues to mount on major global oil producers, particularly OPEC member states, to commit to ending fossil fuel and divert to environmentally sustainable energy, nations are being encouraged to double up efforts to reduce emissions and transition to cleaner energy. The challenge, however, is huge investment is required for a smooth transition. For developing nations, including Ghana, lack the wherewithal to quicken the transition process. It is a juggle as to how to meet the basic needs of the citizenry and national development aspirations, and at the same time tackle climate change issues. It is for this reason poor nations have mounted pressure on developed states, who are the large polluters anyway, to bear part of the responsibility. President Akufo-Addo sums up the concerns of developing nations.
The disproportionate level of emissions by industrial nations of the global north has significantly contributed to the current climate crisis. This imbalance in contribution necessitates a moral obligation for these countries to mobilize more resources to combat climate change.
Other global leaders could not agree more with the Ghanaian leader.
Climate justice is long overdue. Developing countries are being devastated by disasters they did not cause. Extortionate borrowing costs are blocking their climate action plans, and support is far too little, far too late. The global stocktake must commit to a surge in finance, including for adaptation and loss and damage.
Ghana says it would require some $550 billion to build the infrastructure to enable a transition to clean energy. Minister for Energy Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh says that kind of investment is possible with private capital sector leading the charge.
The realization of the requisite capital will culminate in the universal access to affordable and reliable power by 2024, and economy-wide decarbonization, socio-economic development would lead to about 400,000 net jobs, and above all, meet our net zero emissions by the year 2060.
In the last 1 week, government officials have been holding engagements intended to woo investors into the clean energy area. For now, the country has only gotten about $50 million in pledges to assist with its resilience program. It has also secured a deal with the Swiss government to trade carbon emissions credits worth $20 million. As nations continue to look for funding, it remains to be seen whether the Loss and Damage Fund set up at this year's COP to support climate-vulnerable nations could be the much-expected catalyst to ease the transition burden. As of this week, some $400 million has been pledged to the fund. Will the pledges translate into actual cash? The future will tell.
Well, as Ghana concludes its participation in United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP28 in Dubai, the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abujinapo, has been emphasizing the need for global leaders to take decisive and crucial measures in addressing climate change. The Lands Minister, who addressed the local and international press on Saturday, December 9, 2023, stressed the need for leaders to demonstrate commitment to the fight against climate change. To have a better understanding on the back of this, Awula Serwah is the coordinator of Eco-Conscious Citizens, and she joins us to throw more light on this. Good afternoon, ma'am. You have followed the COP28. What are your impressions so far?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me. I couldn't agree more with the fact that those who are post largely caused the situation we find ourselves in should be part of remedying the situation with funds. But having said that, that doesn't mean that we, I'm talking about Ghana, should not also put our house in order. We cannot, with one hand, be asking for funds, and then with the other hand, be engaged in activities that are far from mitigating climate change. I'll give you an example. We have the continuing devastation of our forest reserves. We have declassified parts of Achimota Forest, the lungs of Accra. And, I'm sorry, I've got a bit of a technical problem.
You're still watching Weekend Central here on TV3. Welcome back. And let's continue with our interview with Awula Serwah, who is the coordinator for Eco-Conscious Citizens. So, ma'am, if you can hear me again, I'm sure you're in the right position to speak to us. We know that Ghana was represented on Saturday when the Lands and Natural Resources Minister Samuel Jinapor emphasized the need for global leaders to take decisive action in addressing climate change. But will you say Ghana as a country has done enough to tackle the situation?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. And I apologize for what happened earlier on technology.
Okay.
I have to say that I do not think, and I'm sure many concerned citizens are very upset about the way things are going on in our country. We face an existential threat. There we are at COP28 saying the right things, but have we put our house in order? Have we dealt with climate change as we can? I'm very concerned about the fact that we are not interested in climate adaptation or mitigation. We have declassified parts of Achimota Forest. We know the value of forests in combating climate change. We know that Achimota forests are the last remaining lungs of Accra. We've also passed EI 2462, which allows mining in forest reserves, including globally significant biodiversity areas. When we are doing this, how can we be serious about combating climate change? In addition, we have not dealt with Prof. Frimpong Boateng's report. He gave instances of organizations and high flyers involved in illegal mining. And let me be clear, even if an organization has a license to mine, they can't mine irresponsibly. So if they're mining outside the parameters, then they engage in illegal mining. As I speak, there's illegal mining going on the Ofin River.
All right, so let me come in here. We know that Ghana is witnessing impact of climate change all around the coastal communities, where the experiences of erosion and other, related activities. How urgent will you say it is for us in this country?
I mean, the urgency is yesterday. We have to do things now. We need to stop building where we shouldn't build. We need to stop building on mangroves and wetlands and so on and so forth, but they all have a role to play in stopping flooding. So long as we just do things anyhow, so long as the EPA cannot fulfill its role of monitoring and enforcement, so long as we just behave as if there are no laws in the country, what is going on will continue. So I'm seriously saying that if we want to arrest the situation, true, industrialized countries have caused a lot of the mess, but we don't have to contribute to it. We need to stop declassifying. We need to revoke EI 144 and LI 2462. We need to immediately stop the destruction of our forest reserves. We need to stop buildings in mangroves.
Right.
We need to demolish buildings which are where they shouldn't be. I mean, we can't just go around asking for money when there's even no assurance that should we get the money, we'll use the money responsibly. I don't have any.
Right. Thank you for your time this afternoon. We have been speaking to Awula Serwah, who is the coordinator of Eco-Conscious Citizens, and she has been throwing more light on climate change and how it is heavily affecting Ghana. And I think at this point, we need urgent attention. You've watched stories where somewhere around, Bukom and other areas around the sea, houses there are actually being washed away,
waves and
people are rendered homeless. So when it gets to 6 p.m., the temperature of the water rises, and then the water comes forward. So people who live along the banks of the sea will have to battle, evaporation from the sea, the heat, and all of that.
I saw some of them using sacks of sand.
Exactly. They'll actually have to
homes.
buy rocks to be able to create their own sea defense so that the water won't be able to eat further into their homes. And it is really, really, really disturbing. And climate change is actually something that has been on the lips of many, not just in Ghana, across the world. COP28 in Dubai was a great initiative that would address climate change issues. And I am hopeful that since the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Abujina was there,
mantle.
Ghana will get to benefit and also tackle this situation to an end.